Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raised fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. Judge Franklin Thatcher, seated on the high bench, made a point of letting the white folks slide. He had just dismissed 2 Caucasian men for tardiness. One a cocky kid, the other an old-timer with a folksy smile and a theatrical wink, with nothing more than a wave of the hand. But when his gaze settled on the black woman standing ramrod straight in a tailored suit, the smile evaporated from his face, replaced by a familiar, ugly tightening in his chest. Here we go. The judge thought, the internal monologue a pool of instant prejudice. Asterisk, probably got her job through some diversity hire initiative. Walks in here with a $1,000 briefcase and a chip on her shoulder the size of Atlanta. Thinks she's the same as everyone else. Asterisk, he tapped his gavel once, a sharp, proprietary sound. Time to remind her the rules. He let her stand in silence for a long, agonizing moment, shuffling papers he wasn't reading. Finally, he looked up, feigning surprise. Well, now look what we have here. Am I pronouncing this right, Miss Ramsey? He asked, deliberately butchering her name. The clock on that wall, the official clock of Wakefield County, says you were due in my courtroom 15 minutes ago. Does that fancy watch of yours run on a different kind of time? Leah Ramsey's expression remained perfectly neutral, her composure a shield forged from years of professional necessity. My apologies for my tardiness. Your Honor, the name is Ramsey. I was unavoidably detained on a federal matter. Detained, Thatcher echoed, savoring the word as he leaned into his microphone. That's a mighty big word. Must have been a real 5-alarm fire over at the Bureau. He made air quotes with his fingers. Tell me, was someone's paperwork filed using the wrong color ink? Was it a full-blown stapler crisis? The sycophantic chuckles from the front row were right on cue. Let me be clear, Miss Ramsey, Thatcher said, his voice suddenly booming. Your schedule does not matter here. Your title does not matter here. The only thing that matters is my authority. He leaned forward, dropping his voice to a theatrical whisper that still reached every corner of the room. And your contempt for it is going to cost you $$$950, payable immediately. Leah felt the impact like a physical blow, yet her face betrayed nothing. This wasn't about being late. This was a performance, a public shaming staged by a man whose power felt threatened by the color of her skin. He was making an example of her. Her own case, a fraudulent lien on the home her grandmother had lived in for 70 years, suddenly felt 1,000 miles away. Your Honor, she began again, her voice crisp and clear. If you would permit me to explain the official government business that caused the delay. The gavel crashed down. I will not. That fine is your lesson for the day. Now, what is this other minor complaint you brought before me? Leah took a single, calming breath and approached the podium. The mission had changed. This was no longer a personal errand. It was now a professional obligation. The matter concerns a fraudulent lien placed on a private residence, Your Honor, she stated, opening her portfolio. The city has assessed a $50% dollar valuation increase without any legal basis. Thatcher waved a dismissive hand. File it with the clerk. I'll look at it when I have the time. Right now, we're discussing your failure to respect this court. I assure you, sir, my respect for the law is absolute. Leah's voice was pure ice. My delay was a direct result of my duties as the lead agent on a federal public corruption task force. The judge's eyes narrowed into hateful slits. Your job titles are worthless in this room. The law is the law. Indeed it is, Leah agreed, her gaze locking onto his. Which is why, for the official court record, I must ask a clarifying question. Is the penalty for tardiness the same for every single city? A collective inhale swept the room. Mrs. Albright, the court clerk, went rigid, her fingers frozen above the keyboard. Thatcher's face turned a dangerous shade of purple. Are you accusing me of bias in my own courtroom, girl? He hissed, the venom dripping. I am simply ensuring the record is clear, sir, Leah replied, her tone unshakable, so that no one could ever mistake justice in this county for anything less than impartial. The gavel slammed down again and again, the frantic pounding echoing his fury. I will not be lectured by you. The fine stands. Get out of my courtroom. Thank you for your time, Your Honor, Leah said, an emotionless mask fixed on her face. As she walked out, a sea of faces watched her, some scared, some smug. But near the door, a black man in greasy coveralls met her gaze. He didn't smile, he just nodded once. It was a nod that said, asterisk, we see it. We always see it. Asterisk, under the sweltering Georgia sun. Leah knew this was bigger than the fine, bigger than the lien. This was a sickness in the heart of the system. She reached for her phone to call her boss, Assistant Director Croft, but her hand stopped. This deserves more than a phone call. This warrants a personal visit. She turned and walked back into the courthouse, her heels clicking with cold purpose. Judge Thatcher was still on the bench, basking in the afterglow of his little power play. When Leah Ramsey walked back to the podium, his face soured. He thought he had one. The court is adjourned, Ramsey, he snapped. If you have something else to say, take it up with the clerk. I won't be taking it up with the clerk, Your Honor. Leah's voice was unnervingly quiet, yet carried a new weight that made Officer Kent, the bailiff, stand a little straighter. Because my business is with you, I feel it's my duty to introduce myself properly. She held up her credentials. In the dim, oppressive light of the courtroom, the golden eagle of the Department of Justice seemed to catch fire. My name is Leah Ramsey. I am a special agent with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. For the last 12 years, my sole focus has been investigating public corruption and federal civil rights violations. The blood seemed to drain from Judge Thatcher's face, leaving behind a pale, waxy mass of sheer terror. The petty tyrant, who had puffed up his chest moments before, completely deflated, shrinking into his high-back leather chair. He looked like a man who had just been told his entire world was a fraud. The reason I was late, Leah continued, her voice cold and clinical, each word precision-cut diamond, was that I was personally signing the operational plan for a federal anti-corruption sting. And while I was waiting for my case to be called, I observed certain procedural inconsistencies. She retrieved a small notepad from her portfolio. So I took notes. I documented 2 instances of judicial leniency granted to Caucasian males, and 1 instance of punitive and biased sentencing directed at an African-American female, myself. Thatcher's lips pressed into a thin, bloodless line. If you have a complaint, there are official channels for that. As a sworn federal officer, I am legally obligated to report any potential criminal activity I witness, Leah stated, her voice as hard as granite. And what I witnessed in this room today, sir, wasn't complaint. It was a textbook example of potential violation of United States Code, Title 18, Section 242, deprivation of rights under color of law. The silence that followed was absolute. Mrs. Albright stared with wide, terrified eyes. Judge Thatcher looked small, exposed, and weak. You can go now, Miss Ramsey, he stammered, his voice a choked whisper. Leah slowly slid her credentials back into her coat pocket. Thank you, Your Honor, she said, letting the words hang in the air like a final verdict. Rest assured, this entire matter will now be handled properly. The unveiling of the rot that night, a single encrypted file, landed on the desktop of Assistant Director Croft. The phone call came at 9 a.m. sharp the next morning. Leah, I read the report. Croft's voice was all business. If he was this blatant with a federal agent, this isn't a one-off. This is a pattern. This is rot. It is, Leah confirmed. He was proud of it. All right, I'm kicking this upstairs to the State Commission on Judicial Conduct. We are lighting the fuse. Effective now, I want his entire judicial history. Every ruling, every fine, every appeal. When this bomb goes off, I won't be holding the trigger. Leah plunged into years of digital archives and courthouse records. It didn't take long for a sickening, undeniable pattern to emerge. Fines for minor infractions were on average a staggering 5 times higher for black and Hispanic defendants than for white defendants who committed the exact same offenses. Within a week, the commission's investigators arrived at the Wakefield County Courthouse. They were quiet men in unassuming suits, and they hit pay dirt almost immediately. The court clerk, a nervous woman named Mrs. Albright, pulled the lead investigator aside. "There's something you need to see," she whispered, her hands trembling as she unlocked the bottom desk drawer. She pulled out a worn black ledger. "Ma'am, you took a tremendous risk keeping this," the investigator asked gently. "My son is a good boy." Mrs. Albright clutched the book to her chest, her eyes welling with tears. "He's the same age as a kid Judge Thatcher fined into bankruptcy last month over a busted taillight. Every time he ruined a life, I saw my son's face. I couldn't throw it away. I had to believe that someday someone would come looking for it." The ledger was a bombshell, a meticulous, handwritten log of the judge's most egregious and racist comments, rulings, and fines. A secret diary of his reign of terror. Her story was quickly backed up by the veteran bailiff, Officer Kent. "I've had a front-row seat to the Franklin Thatcher show for 25 years, he told him, his voice thick with shame. "Watched him break people for sport because of the color of their skin. I knew it was poison, but I cashed my paycheck and looked the other way." The final verdict. While the investigation unfolded inside, the story exploded outside. One raw, painful story cut deeper than the rest. A single mother racing her son to his chemotherapy appointment was pulled over for a broken taillight. In court, Judge Thatcher hit her with a crippling $$200 fine. When she tried to explain, he cut her off, sneering, "Save your sob story. In my experience, your kind always has one ready." Her ordeal became the symbol of his long, cruel reign. The local news sealed his fate with a headline, "Bias on the bench," and the pressure became unbearable. Thatcher issued a weak statement about being misconstrued, but he was already a man running out of air. By the end of the week, Croft called. "The numbers are in. It's an undeniable pattern of discrimination. What's the end game?" "An emergency session of the disciplinary board," Croft replied. "They want you there to witness the execution." The final reckoning was cold and sterile. Thatcher sat at one end of a long table, utterly alone, faced with the media firestorm, the damning ledger, and the cold, hard data. At the other end sat the board and Special Agent Leah Ramsey. Chief Justice Holloway slid a thick folder in front of him. "Franklin, we've seen it all. The ledger, the testimony, the numbers. It's one of the most disgusting abuses of power this board has ever seen." Thatcher started to bluster. "This is a misunderstanding." "Save it." Holloway cut him off, her voice like ice. "The time for lies is over. You have two choices. Option 1, you sign this resignation and vanish. Option 2, we hold a public hearing, strip you of your judgeship, and I personally hand this file to the Department of Justice. Agent Ramsey here will oversee your federal power. The threat was a death sentence." Thatcher's face went slack. He looked at Leah, pleading for mercy, and found only the cold, unblinking stare of a federal agent. The bully inside him evaporated, leaving a pathetic, broken shell. A resignation letter was placed before him. His hands shook as he signed, the scratching of the pen the only sound in the room. As he stood to leave, an official stepped forward. "Sir, your ID and judicial credentials." Humiliated, Thatcher fumbled in his wallet, his hands trembling, slapped the cards on the table, and walked out. He was a disgraced man who learned the hard way that when you pick a fight based on bigotry, you never know whose badge will be the last one shown at execution, and you will go to prison.